In this video, I'm going to show you how to make some special hamster food. And by special, I mean special in the sense that it can be used to both prevent and to treat hamster diseases. But before I get into the substance of it, I have to say a few things. First, I have to apologize in advance because I'm not a very good speaker. I'm not a very good videographer, and this is the first video I've ever tried to do. And the setup I have here is a little shaky. This table isn't flat. The camera's not really adjusted the way I want it. It doesn't have optical zoom features. I'm stuck with the fixed field of view. And the tripod is flimsy and hard to adjust, and the table isn't quite level. And I need to refer to my notes on this laptop here, and I can see that the camera software is using a lot of processor power, so I had to put a fan on it. I hope it doesn't shut down in the middle of this. Anyway, I should also say that I'm not a biologist, I'm not a chemist, I'm not a doctor. I'm just actually I'm an engineer by formal training. My background is in electrical engineering and physics. And lastly, I have to say that how this came about, I have to talk about that. A few years ago, I became the guardian to a little Roborovsky dwarf hamster, and his name was Hammy. And I acquired Hammy from another person who originally got him from PetSmart. Before this, I had no experience with hamsters, and I didn't know much about them in general or how to properly care for them. Well, Hammy and I quickly bonded, and because I wanted to take good care of him, I became interested in hamster biology. And I tried to learn everything I could about proper hamster care. I soon came to the conclusion that most of the commercially available food would fall on the spectrum somewhere between suboptimal and toxic. And it wasn't just the food that concerned me. The water bottles were made out of cheap plastic, of the kind known to leach chemicals into their contents. And even the cages, the toys, the accessories, everything was cheap and flimsy and dangerous, as I saw it. Anyway, one day Hammy got sick, and it was on a weekend that I first noticed it. I think it was like a Saturday night. And I noticed that he had severe diarrhea, and he was lethargic, and he had stopped eating and drinking, and I knew he was in bad shape. And I think I called every veterinary clinic within a 50-mile radius or so. And of the ones that were even open on weekends in the first place, not a single one of them had a hamster-experienced vet available to see Hammy. So I did the best I could. I tried to keep him hydrated and warm. And then on Monday, I took him to a clinic nearby where he was seen by a hamster-experienced vet. And that's when I learned about the high cost of treatment. Now, in addition to the diarrhea, the vet determined that Hammy had a respiratory infection. And he also had some fur loss. I wondered how it was at the time that Hammy had so many problems, but the vet didn't really offer any explanation. Basically, for $180, the vet gave Hammy a shot of antibiotics and sent him home. And the vet really didn't even think Hammy was going to make it. But Hammy, excuse me, Hammy got round-the-clock care. and Hammy pulled through. After this experience, Hammy and I were even closer. And he would sit in my hand and nibble on my fingers, which was one of the ways he would show his affection. And here was this little fuzzy hamster kid sitting in my hand with his cute little ears and his cute little paws, his cute little tail, and his big brown eyes. This tiny little self-contained natural person who was intelligent, who had his own unique personality, who felt pain, and who appreciated love and affection and gave them abundantly in return. Hammy didn't want to run the world. He didn't want money and power. He had no use really for material things. He had no issues with vanity, and he told me no lies. With Hammy, what you saw was what you got. And really all he wanted was a place to sleep, some simple toys, some food, and some love and affection. And what's not to really love about that? And I realized that we were both created by the same creator. And neither one of us had asked to be born. But here we were, and we just happened to meet by chance. And I realized that we're both on the same spiritual plane. In other words, I had no superior right to exist. And these were just some of the things that little hamster kid Hammy taught. Anyway, looking at the big picture, I realized that hamsters were kind of in a puppy mill situation. And with Hammy as my research assistant, we decided to try to do something about that. So I began doing serious research into nutritional intervention to prevent and treat hamster diseases. My thinking was that if a naked mole rat, for example, can live 25 to 30 years in good health, then why not at least 5 or 6 years for a hamster? I mean, this was my thinking. And I think it's possible. Anyway, then last summer I noticed that Hammy had a lump on his abdomen. And I took him to several different vets, and the consensus was that he had developed a tumor. I tried a few things, but a few different treatments, but I wasn't having much success. Then a month later, I noticed that another lump had developed, and I started to get pretty worried at that point. Then one day, after literally dozens of hours of literature research, things started coming together for me. Things started making sense, basically, and I thought I had finally understood what had happened to Hammy, and I focused on developing a treatment strategy. And I concluded that the tumors were basically the latent result of his previous illness. His immune system that had become compromised. And this was evidenced by the diarrhea and the fur loss, which were actually secondary to the respiratory infection. And my theory is that he apparently suffered a loss of immunosurveillance, mediated by an acute stress-induced thymic involution, on top of the aging-related thymic atrophy that normally affects aging animals. By the time I came to this realization, however, the tumors had grown larger, And they were apparently starting to bother Hammy a little bit. And I was worried that it would take me some time to work out the details of the treatment. And in the meantime, he'd bite and scratch them, and they'd get infected, and I'd end up with other problems on my hands. So while Hammy was still in relatively good overall physical condition, I made the fateful decision to take him to Cornell University Animal Hospital in Ithaca, New York, which is about a 1.5-hour drive from here, where he was basically murdered by a piece of subhuman filth masquerading as a human being, pretending to be a doctor of veterinary medicine. I handed over to Dr. James Kevin Morrissey the most precious thing I had in my life. Hammy. And Morrissey took him into the back, and by way of some combination of negligence and incompetence and complete indifference, simply killed Hammy. And then after brutally killing Hammy, Morrissey lied about what happened, and not only showed no remorse whatsoever, but appeared to be in a jovial mood. When I pointed out to the hospital administrator the fact that Morrissey's statements about what happened to Hammy were contradictory and made no sense, the hospital administrator basically piled lie on top of lie and defended Morrissey to the point of absurdity. So on that terrible day in September of last year, I lost not only my best friend, my companion, and my research assistant, but I also lost the last little bit of faith I had in this society. And I realize now that we basically live in a lawless banana republic where sociopaths aspire to positions of trust, and then when they breach that trust, they never seem to be held accountable for the evil that they do. Well, I guess that's enough background for now. So for whatever it's worth, I'm submitting this video into the public domain in loving memory of Hammy, with the hope that the information may help some other hamsters and the guardians that love and care for them. Okay, let me see if I can adjust this camera a little bit better and try to focus on what I'm doing here. Okay. First thing to do is make sure everything is clean, including your hands. And as a container, I use one of these Rubbermaid containers, polypropylene, I think they are, and it has a top that screws on. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the baby food. And I use Earth's Best vegetable turkey dinner. I'm going to try to show you that, the label. And I'm going to put the whole jar in here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some extra turkey. And this is Beech Nut home style turkey and turkey broth. I'm going to show you the label. I'm going to add half a jar. Now, I need to stop for a second and philosophize again. I hate to bore you with that, but I need to say that I really don't like the idea of giving meat to an animal. I don't eat meat myself, and therefore I have problems with giving it to animals. I did start doing some research into substitutes. My original plan was to make something similar to this from scratch, and I was going to use other types of proteins rather than animal protein. And I experimented with some pea protein powder and brown rice protein powder. And before I give anything to an animal, I try it on myself. And those two things seemed to give me a headache. And there were other possibilities, in fact, lots of other ones. But when Hammy got sick, I stopped that. I didn't pursue that any further. And maybe someone else can take the ball and run with it. So I just wanted to say that we really need to find something different as a source of protein. Okay, so now I've got the 1 jar of Earth's Best Vegetable Turkey Dinner and 1/2 jar of beech nut turkey mixed in here. And the next thing I'm going to add, actually I'm getting ahead of myself again. I need to back up and I need to explain something. The 3 things that I'm trying to target are the cardiovascular system, the immune system, and the other, well, gut health, basically. We want to maintain a state of normal biosis and prevent dysbiosis. And the stuff that you're going to see me make here today, well, you know what? Let me say it differently. I'll speak as I go, and I'll try to explain it as I go along. Okay, this is just a cheap scale. I think I got it from eBay, and it's not really the best, and it only resolves down to 10 milligrams. That's actually good enough for what we're going to do here because none of this stuff is really toxic, and it's all an approximation. And I'm going to start with approximately 70 milligrams of acetyl-carnitine, and I'll show you the label. It's Now brand acetyl-carnitine powder. And okay, I'm going to note the weight of that little cup. It's the bottom of a Dixie cup. And I'm going to shoot for, I don't want to pick out any lumps, I'm going to shoot for roughly 70 milligrams. Okay, that's 70 milligrams right there. And now I'm going to add approximately 50 milligrams of taurine. And I'm going to show you the label. It's Now brand powdered taurine. And I'm going to try to get 50 milligrams of this. Shut off on me. That's another reason to get a better scale. It times out after a while. Okay, well, as it turns out, I'm close to where I want to be, so that's about right. And you want to stir it around real good, make sure everything gets evenly distributed. These two are both water soluble, so they mix up well. Now, I should explain the purpose of these things. Both carnitine and taurine are things that a hamster would normally get in its natural habitat. And a hamster would eat insects and insect larvae, and that would contain both of these ingredients. And these two ingredients are extremely critical for hamster health. There's no other way to put it. I mean, I don't know why commercial hamster food doesn't have this in it. But the hamsters have a big disadvantage without it. And taurine, for example, taurine is found abundantly in the body, and it's always associated with a protective role. It basically protects every organ. And in fact, you could say wherever there isn't a lot of taurine, there's some kind of pathological process going on. You could almost put it that way. It protects the heart, it protects the lungs, it protects the kidneys, it protects the liver. And let's say, for example, you're going to give your hamster a course of some antifungal drug. Those azole drugs, as they're called, can cause liver damage. They can cause damage to the heart even. And this is the go-to guy right here, taurine, protect the liver and the heart. And even, for example, hamster eye diseases. The eyes have a lot of taurine, and if they don't have taurine, you're in trouble. And whenever, like I said, whenever there's a disease process going on, for example, glaucoma, you're going to find a deficiency of taurine. So this is critical to hamster health. In fact, there are studies. If I can do it, I'll attach them onto the end of this video. I can basically back up everything I'm saying. Now, with the carnitine is available in several forms. I'm using acetylcarnitine rather than just plain carnitine or carnitine tartrate, for example. And the reason I'm using acetylcarnitine is because both the acetyl and the carnitine moieties themselves are bioactive. And when you put them together, it has some unique properties. And for example, well, in fact, the main reason I'm using it is because acetylcarnitine has been shown to boost melatonin production. In aging animals, melatonin production falls off. And melatonin is one of those things which has been, studies have identified as a potential agent to rejuvenate the thymus. In other words, to reverse the age-associated thymic involution. And that's really what we want to do here, is restore the immune system. And carnitine also is critically important to the cellular power plants, mitochondria, especially in the heart. And in cases of hamster cardiomyopathy, there's always an associated carnitine deficiency. So, and carnitine has other properties too. It's been shown to be efficacious in preventing cachexia that occurs along with degenerative diseases like cancer and heart disease. So really these two, I consider these two to be base ingredients. And what I mean is really there's no situation where you wouldn't want to add these. So this is the base formula: the baby food, acetylcarnitine, and the taurine. And now I'm going to add something else. I'm going to add a few drops of olive oil. This is extra virgin olive oil. And I'm adding that. Well, actually, it has its own polyphenols, which are healthy in and of themselves, but the fats in it will make the next several ingredients more bioavailable. And the first ingredient I'm going to add is going to be astaxanthin. And I'm going to show you the label. And these are 2 milligram gel caps. These came from a grocery store. You can buy them online. The company is called Astavita, and the trade name is Astareal. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this this kitchen knife here, and I'm just going to poke the end. I'm going to just put a little hole in the end here. And it's like a blood red. First time I did this, I thought I cut myself. But anyway, I'm going to add 4 drops, which is about half of the contents, about 1 milligram. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Now, if your hamster has been diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, go ahead and put the whole thing in. Otherwise, I would just save it for the next time. It's kind of expensive. And I don't believe in getting carried away. I believe doing everything in moderation is the key. And you can see how that kind of changed the color. The color's uniform. I can tell it's mixed in pretty good. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to add is some vitamin D. And this is kind of critical. You don't want to get carried away with this. You probably don't even need to add vitamin D. It depends on how much you give your hamster. If your hamster is only getting this 2 times a week as a preventative measure, you probably don't even need to add this. If the hamster has a disease condition and you're trying to treat that disease, and now all of a sudden maybe you're giving a hamster this every other day or even every day, it has to be more nutritionally complete. So in that situation, you're going to want to add the vitamin D, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You want to make sure you start out. I'm going to show you the label. This is just a generic 400 IU gel cap from a local grocery store. It's cheap. It's available in a lot of places. You don't want to add more than 100 IU of vitamin D to this. Now, I know from previous experience that these gel caps have a little more than 3 drops, maybe 3.5 drops. So basically, I want to put 1 drop in there. And there's my 1 drop, and I'm done with that. So, once again, mix it up real carefully, thoroughly. And now I'm going to add, and this is optional. This is optional as well. This is gamma E complex. It's a form of vitamin E. It's high in gamma tocopherol. And I'm going to show you the label. It's Now brand. I use Now brand stuff because it's really high quality. Now, I'm using this not as a nutrient per se, but I'm using it as a preservative actually. And if you only have 1 or 2 hamsters and you want this stuff to last in the refrigerator, it's good to add this because it'll preserve the protein quality an extra day or 2. Instead of having to throw it out after 3 days, you might get 5 out of it. And I'm just going to add 1 drop. And that's it. In fact, if you add more than 1, the hamsters aren't going to like it. And they're picky eaters. And if you put too much of something in it, they won't eat it right. And okay, so now we've got our vitamin D, we've got our astaxanthin, we've got our gamma tocopherol as a preservative, and I'm going to add 1 more thing here, and that's some apple boost powder. Basically, it's organic powdered apple peel, and I'll show you the label. It's very high. It's very high in antioxidant strength. It's got, I mean, a typical apple might have 29 or 30 or 35 different polyphenols in the peel, and a lot of them are fat soluble, and that's what the olive oil will help with that. And I mean, there's stuff in here, ursolic acid, which is a anti-tumorigenic and anti-diabetic and anti-everything bad, basically. And the apple peel also has fiber, which is going to thicken it up a little bit, so it won't be quite as liquidy. And hamsters like it when it's thicker. So this scoop holds about a half a gram, and I'm just gonna, that's how much I'm gonna put in, half a gram. And that's basically all I need of that. And as usual, stir it up real good. Now, what's important here is not only the ingredients that you see me putting in here, but the fact that it's wide open. We can put anything. What we have here is a vehicle to deliver nutrients, a targeted nutrient to a hamster for a targeted condition. And that's, in my view, that's the most valuable thing here. It's the method that's available to us. And I need to explain something. I don't remember if I mentioned this. I think I didn't. The astaxanthin is a very powerful health-protecting substance. It's very good. It's non-toxic. It's powerful. There's one little caveat, though. The studies show that although it inhibits tumor initiation, it has a paradoxical effect where it actually seems to promote tumor growth after the initiation phase. Once a tumor starts, it's time to stop the astaxanthin. So if your hamster has a tumor, don't use the astaxanthin. Instead, I would recommend this, and this isn't in the original bottle. In fact, I'll just this is curcumin, powdered curcumin. You can see the color of it. This came from a company called Beyond a Century. They have an online store. Originally, the manufacturer is Sabinsa. But if your hamster has a tumor, you want to, instead of the astaxanthin, you want to use 50 milligrams of this. Just the same way you saw me do the other ingredients. I'm not going to add it now, but for future reference. The other thing is, you can add to this, is probiotics. And here's one I kind of like. It's called Only Natural Pet. And it's a probiotic blend. They're capsules. The recommended dose for a cat is 1/4 of a capsule. And that's about what I would put in here. The dose for a cat is actually 1/4 capsule 1 to 3 times daily. So 1/4 of a capsule would be what you'd want to add to this. I'm not going to add it now. I'm only going to say this. There's different varieties of probiotics available that you can mix in here. The only thing I would recommend against, I would not use anything that has silica in it. And the reason I say that is because the types of silica that are used as flow agents in nutritional products, in my mind, are not biologically inert. And I think they're actually dangerous. They're amorphous silica nanoparticles, and they are bioactive. I don't care what the manufacturer says. The emerging evidence is that they can cause an inflammatory response. They get into the cellular areas where the bigger particles can't get to, and they cause a response, and it's not a good response. So before you add anything to this mix, I would urge you not to add it if it has silica in it. And this particular brand doesn't have silica. And I used to give Hammy yogurt with blueberry powder in it. And it was a wild blueberry powder, which is, actually Hammy had a wild blueberry extract. As I mentioned that I believe it's critically important to maintain gut health, normal biosis. And As I also may have mentioned, hamsters, well, I don't think I did mention it. Various studies have shown over the years that pet shop hamsters are loaded with parasites, especially robos. And that's what happened to Hammy when he got the respiratory infection. His immune system was compromised, and the parasites took over. And I believe it's important to support the immune system by not only with the indirect effect of the acetylcarnitine, but by giving the hamsters natural ingredients that have an antimicrobial function. And blueberry is one of those things, but it has to be wild blueberry. Unfortunately, I haven't found a source yet for wild blueberry freeze-dried powder that doesn't have silica in it. I'm still looking. The best situation would be a berry, like a berry blend, and maybe with some blueberry, raspberry, cranberry, the different polyphenols and the different anthocyanins. Well, put it this way: all these berries, when mixed together, the anthocyanins seem to have a synergistic effect against parasites and bacteria. There's a wide antimicrobial spectrum there if you get all those berries together. And what I would like to do with this is add some kind of a freeze-dried berry blend. That would be really helpful. I just haven't found it yet. I'm trying to recover emotionally from what happened, and it's destroyed me, and I'm still not right, and my faculties aren't anywhere near back to what they were, and maybe they will never be. I don't know. It's a daily struggle. Anyway, the other thing I need to mention, as far as the immune system, the acetylcarnitine has an effect of increasing melatonin, which there's evidence that melatonin can reverse the thymic involution process. However, that process is somewhat age dependent. As the hamster ages, or any animal ages, the acetylcarnitine is going to be less and less effective at producing melatonin. So if your hamster has a tumor, and your hamster is, say, 2 years old or older, I would recommend melatonin. And as it turns out, there are several varieties of melatonin in liquid form, which are available commonly and inexpensive. And I have one of them right here. And this came from the local mall. It came from Vitamin World. I'm going to show you the label. Okay, that's I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I sat down one day and I calculated it, I estimated it, and I came up with again, 1 drop. Everything seems to be 1 drop. 1 drop is about all you would need, and that would be like equivalent to a human dose of maybe 3 to 5 milligrams, which would be therapeutic for hamsters that are that have a problem with a tumor. So like I say, if your hamster is older and has a tumor, you want to put 1 drop of melatonin into this mixture. And you want to put 50 milligrams of curcumin instead of the astaxanthin. And this is what it looks like. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave me a comment, and I'll try to get back to you.